Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name's Cody, and what I've been doing while on vacation in Singapore is I've been reading a few of my old books, because most of my books I left here in Singapore, because if you didn't know, my family lives here in Singapore, but 5 years ago now I went back to Australia. I lived in Singapore for about 5 years, and my family's still living here, and they still have all of the books and stuff that were mine, because, well, getting a lot of books, like, across an ocean, it's big, heavy packaging and costs lots of money, and it's like, well, never really got around to it, I guess. But now that I'm here, I'm sort of catching up on some old books that, you know, that I really love. I mentioned some old Star Wars books previously, and also my favorite author, Terry Pratchett. I've been going through his books, the City Watch sub-series of Discworld, if you're familiar with him, because that's my favorite, though I like all of the series, though at the start and the end it's not quite as good. He hit a peak. His first few were funny, but not as focused, and then he sort of hit a really high point, you know, like midway through, and then his last couple of books, he had Alzheimer's, and his last couple of books, you could tell it was getting less and less subtle, I'd say. Characters started monologuing and all this kind of stuff, whereas before they would be clever and say one line and it would imply a bunch of stuff. And apparently it's because he wasn't able to type anymore, and he just dictated and that kind of stuff. But they're still good books. They're still better than what I could write. Though I would like to get around to writing something one day. Which I've mentioned before. I'm really good at writing, in that I'm really good at thinking about writing. I'm really good at looking in about how to do writing, like story structure and this kind of thing. The tiny bit that's eluded me is the part where I write anything, which is, as it turns out, the most important part. So, still working on that. But yeah, if you're familiar with Discworld, good job. If you're not familiar with Discworld, you should try reading it. Start with one called Guards if you want to follow the City Watch series that I was talking about, because I think they're all really good. I just find the main character, Vimes, really interesting, because he represents something that we don't see done well very often, which is the idea that someone can be, lawful good in D&D terminology and still be an interesting character with flaws and struggles and all this kind of stuff, because people tend to associate lawful good with boring, because, for example, Superman is boring, but that's not because he's, good. It's not because he's not edgy enough, as much as recent movies might tell you otherwise. It's just because he's boring. I don't know if this is going to be controversial, but Captain America's a better Superman than Superman at the moment, and Vimes, he's an example of how to have someone be good while struggling with the bad, I guess. And that makes him seem so much more relatable. Alright, well, I will see you tomorrow.